babies. It's that time again. Oh, yeah. The sun is a little intermittent today, so we're pausing on the 30-minute sunning. And we're going straight into what can I do to help you today? And I would say discipline should be your best friend. Oh yeah, baby. You're like, well, I thought it was Jesus. Jesus is disciplined. Unlike what the Pharisees think of him, and unlike what some people think of him when they see people living in freedom and under grace, and they're like, you need to be more holy like I am. You need to go to church like I do. You need to believe the Bible like I do. You need to not drink alcohol like I don't. You need to give 10% of your money to the church like I do. No, I'm not talking about that kind of discipline. I'm talking about the discipline that the Spirit creates in each one of us. And each one of us, it's something different. Oh yeah. Of course, we have certain commonalities. And as we grow older, become wiser, we stay away from certain behaviors. But there's some things that are unique to each of us, and we have to discover what that is, because if we miss it, then we're not really living the disciplined lives that we're called to. How do I know that? Well, Jesus came so that we would have His Spirit in us to hear God and to move according to God's voice speaking to us directly. That's how I know. And because I've lived it for 47 years and I've grown to understand what is obedience and what is not. And for me right now, what God's teaching me is to learn to balance being submitted to the Spirit as well as being creative in the Spirit. Oh yeah. And the reason He's doing that is because He wants us to grow up and become more mature, so that instead of waiting on Him in some situations, He just wants us to activate our faith and release what He's already given us to a particular situation or people, and believe that we are releasing the very Spirit of God when we do it. And the reason why He wants me to balance that with being submissive, is that we can very easily get caught up into our own ideas of what we are creating, as opposed to letting God create through us. Oh yeah, baby. So there's your paradox. I tell you, baby, there's always a paradox when it comes to following God. And if you're struggling with your relationship with God, it's most likely you're not balancing paradox in your life. Oh yeah, baby. So you have to discover for yourself how God wants to define discipline for you right now, where you're at in your faith and walk with Him. You can't just copy what I just said and do that. However, that might be useful to you. I'm not saying it's not useful, because I think it's one of those things that we all share in common. But there might be something more specific that God wants you to do before you get into all of what I just described. He might, and hopefully you notice that like you've been hearing Him sort of tugging at you to do a certain thing, and you've been resisting for some reason. So if that's the case, then you already know what your step one is. You don't confuse the issue by using my discipline for your purposes when you already have something you've been avoiding. If that's the case, then that's what you got to do. And that brings up another paradox that quite often I've found that it's the very thing we don't want to do is the very thing we need to do. And I think that is so often the case that if I were you, if you notice yourself resisting something, try to get to it as soon as you can, because the only reason you're resisting it is because it's bringing you into a position of change. And unless you're walking closely with the Lord, you're going to kind of resist change, because you'd rather things kind of go as they have been. So that's it, baby. The discipline is your best friend, because when you keep the parameters active in the Spirit, then you're going to find yourself more free to do other things that you couldn't do before because you were neglecting this important piece of discipline. Oh yeah, baby. And so there's another paradox for you. I'm telling you, God is all paradox all the time. All the time. And that is, the way to be free is to be bound. Yeah, baby. So if you really want to know what freedom is like, then you have to be submitted to the law of the Spirit, that God is speaking to your heart. And so some people look at it like, well, I'm under grace, so I can just do whatever I want. No. You can do whatever you want, but that's not being under grace. Being under grace is doing what I've been describing. God has ushered us into a relationship with Him that was not of our doing. Again, another paradox. So, by faith, we acknowledge we are in relationship with God, and all we need to do to experience freedom and joy and peace and just feeling like you're flying in the sky like a bird is to submit to those little disciplines that are unique to each of us. Oh, yeah, baby. Oh.